Today's chapter talk covers structuring and outlining your speech. 3 key learning objectives we are going to tackle. 1, identify principles of a well-structured speech. No surprise, here comes intro, body, conclusion. Number 2, effectively structure the body of the speech. So we want to identify it, but most importantly, we want to be able to apply it to our next speech. And then thirdly, effectively prepare introduction and conclusion, those bookends that hold the speech together. So let's do it. Our first objective, identify principles of a well-structured speech. 3 key items that we are going to drill down on. First is simplicity. Less is more. Second, then, is balance, making sure that our points are balanced, meaning we're spending similar amounts of time on each of our 3 points, as well as our intro and conclusion. And thirdly is order, structuring the order in a way that makes the most sense for the message. So let's look at each of these 3 things a bit further. First, simplicity. Okay. The quote in front of you, I love, by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, if I'm saying that right. Forgive me if I'm not. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. So this is my challenge to you all as you are writing your speech, not to keep adding and adding useless information, but to strip it down, to winnow it back to just the key items. So there's nothing left you could take away to do justice to your speech. Less is truly more in public speaking. Simplicity. Let's talk how we do this. Number 1, limit the number of points. 3 points is always best. It's not too little, it's not too much. Your listener can comprehend 3 points, and they also have a window of patience to take in 3 points. Number 2, phrase main points clearly. Tell your listener precisely what those main points will be in the introduction, and then as you are moving through those main points, say them again. Make sure that you phrase the main points clearly, and please always use the same language. So for example, in your introduction, if you say, today I'm going to teach you how to grow award-winning tomatoes. Let's assume that's your thesis statement. We're going to talk how to fertilize, how to prune, how to harvest. Okay, so those are our 3 main points. As then you are moving through the body, use that exact same language. My first point, how to fertilize. Discuss the first point. My second point, how to prune. We reached the 3rd point. My 3rd point, how to harvest. Use the same language. Repetition is so effective in public speaking because it's simple and it's clear. And the ultimate goal is that we want people to remember, and to do that, simplicity and clarity is key. Okay? And then the last note, which I just demonstrated to you, repeat key phrases. Those are things like your purpose statement. Today I'm going to teach you how to grow award-winning tomatoes. It's repeating those same main points in the intro, and then as you approach them in the body, and then again in the conclusion. Repeat that thesis statement as many times as possible, as well as state those main points, okay? So simplicity is number 1 in terms of a well-structured speech. Second, then, is order. Okay, the order of the speech. This is simple, but really important. I like to use the hamburger structure, okay? So what does that mean? You'll notice this Big Mac or Whopper or whatever your preference is in front of you. It actually looks more like a Whopper to me. So you'll notice the introduction is that top sesame seed bun. The body, here's where we come to dine, right? This is the meat. This is where our appetite is filled. And then the conclusion is just simply that, the bottom half of that bun. So you want to structure your speech like a hamburger, okay? The introduction and the conclusion, the 2 halves of that sesame seed bun, they're just simply holding that delicious sandwich together. My recommendation for order, 20% of your time should be split between the intro and the conclusion. 80% of your time should be in the body. Just as you see that hamburger in front of you, this is roughly 10%, This is roughly 80%, and this is roughly the remaining 10%. So if you have a 5-minute speech, spend about 30 seconds in the introduction, spend approximately 4 minutes in the body, and then spend another 30 seconds in the conclusion, or however the math breaks out. But split that intro and conclusion 20%, okay? They share that 20%, and the body is 80% of the time you spend talking. So other things to note under order: clear and concise. Once again, repeat those main points, okay? And then as we discussed, intro, body, conclusion, please make sure your listener knows as you are moving from the introduction to the body and from the body to the conclusion. So let's say, going back to my tomato scenario, I open up by asking, okay, who grew up in a family who gardens, or who personally gardens? By a show of hands. And then maybe I ask a couple probing questions. Then in the introduction, I say, all right, today I'm going to teach you how to grow award-winning tomatoes. We're going to talk 3 things. We're going to talk how to fertilize, how to prune, and how to harvest. Now let's get to it, okay? Moving into my first point, how to fertilize. You'll notice there I made a point to let the audience know we're moving to the body. Just as your teeth sink through that top sesame seed bun, you know when it arrives at the burger, okay? As you work through the body, be sure to transition. Again, the only way you have to show for order is how you verbally organize. And then as you transition into the conclusion, once again, let the listener know. Okay, so let's wrap things up. We just talked about how to grow award-winning tomatoes. Specifically, we went through 3 things, and this is where we review. We talked about how to fertilize, how to prune, and how to harvest, okay? Once again, I'm letting that listener know that we are now wrapping up. So order is key. Remember the hamburger structure. Intro, body, conclusion, and again, 10% intro, 80% body, 10% conclusion. And then our third item we are going to discuss is balance. Okay, and this is really how you balance your main points, all right? How do we weigh them? Now, your text gives you 3 approaches to this, and I pulled this image directly from the text. First is equal emphasis. So that would mean I would spend roughly 1 minute and 20 seconds talking about point 1, point 2, point 3. How to fertilize, how to prune, how to harvest. The second example would be a descending emphasis. Now this works well when your audience has to understand something first, where they might need some background knowledge. So maybe I spend 2 minutes in the first point and then 1 minute in the remaining 2 points. That is a descending emphasis. The third approach then is an ascending emphasis. And this is really the opposite, obviously, of descending. When you ascend, you lead up to the most important point. So maybe the third point is your call to action, or the remedy, or the effect. Maybe you spend 45 seconds to 1 minute in the first point, 1.5 minutes in the second point, and then the remaining 2.5 minutes in your third point. That is an ascending emphasis. Now, the rule of thumb is do what makes the most sense for your message. Okay, moving on, objective 2. Now we know what an effective structured speech looks like. Let's specifically drill down then on the body of the speech, okay? 4 key things that we're going to look at: select main points, arrange them, develop them, and then lastly, develop a working outline. So let's pick these apart. The first one, select main points. My rule of thumb for this is the KISS principle. For you Office fans out there, you are welcome. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Selecting main points, less is more. Using that tomato example, I am not using fancy or eloquent or lengthy language. I'm telling you in simplest terms what the speech is going to be about, okay? So let's pick through these line items. Support your purpose. So if my purpose is, today I'm going to teach you how to grow award-winning tomatoes, all 3 of my main points need to do just that. They support that purpose. Secondly, you want to specify in the main points what you want your listener to know. So when I tell you I'm going to teach you how to fertilize, how to prune, and how to harvest, that is precisely what I want you to know. Now, if I were to use more lengthy sentences or more covert language, it would be hiding what I'm truly aiming at teaching you. So be simple, be specific, and make sure that each point articulates its own clear idea. Typo there, my bad, okay? So you'll notice how my tomato scenario represents three different things: how to fertilize, how to prune, and how to harvest. So selecting main points, keep it simple. Next item then is arranging them. Okay, please refer to your text for further explanation on this. I'm going to run through these quickly for time's sake. This is basically, how do I put those points together? What makes the most sense? Categorical number one is just simply that. Maybe you teach me 3 reasons why everyone should own a pet. And those 3 reasons are physical, mental, and social health. That would make sense. It all arranges within that category. Comparative then explores similarities and differences. Maybe that is life before and after the keto diet, life before and after parenthood, where the comparison is really the message, how something has changed, grown, or is different. Third then is spatial. That is where you arrange your main points in how it occurs in space, okay? So that might be, I've done a lot of admissions training, how to give an awesome tour of a college. And literally you arrange your main points as to where you are taking students. So it is the admissions building, it is the rec center, it is the dormitory. That the spot in space determines how you arrange the main points. Fourth then is sequential, okay? Sequential is simply that. It's steps of the process and the order taken. Your demonstration speech is a sequential speech. Let's say you are potentially teaching me how to make a bath bomb, and your 3 main steps are measuring, mixing, molding. You're showing me the steps in a process. Next is chronological, explaining in the order the events occurred, okay? Chronological, maybe it is the history of the cell phone, or the day Kennedy was shot, 11/22/63, where you break down your main points on a timeline. Next is causation. This is cause and effect or problem solution. I've seen speeches surrounding this where the effects of taking a probiotic, or how to restore your gut flora in 1 year, repairing your immune system in 1 year, where you discuss the problem and then you present your message as the solution. To left, refutative. This is where you engage the opposing view. You tackle the key arguments against a subject by way of persuasion. And then lastly, you have narrative, and that is simply where you tell a story from beginning to end. Maybe it's a story of tragedy to advocacy. My family had a very loved aunt that was killed by a drunk driver. And our narrative story is from beginning to end, life with Beth, through the accident and beyond, and how that has taken us from tragedy to advocacy. Those are narrative speech examples. Okay, last thing we need to do then is develop your main points. Every speech should have 3 main points, and every main point should have 3 subpoints. Okay, so you have your main point, and then you support it with subpoints. Sometimes you may need subpoints to clearly understand a subpoint. In that, for instance, make sure you have 2 subpoints, or excuse me, 2 subs, okay? And then lastly, we develop our working outline. Your outline, it reveals the pattern of speech, okay? It is your game plan. It is the order you're going to present the info. It clearly identifies your main points, and it shows how they fit together. So your outline is always working. Build your outline and then practice. And you'll often find that you slide a point around, or you need to build a sub-point to really do that justice. Now, the key word here is a working outline. You need to work with the outline to make it work for you. That is your roadmap that you practice with, and then you take with you into the speech, the game plan. Okay, so the objectives we covered: identify principles of a well-structured speech, effectively structure body of speech, And lastly, effectively prepare introduction and conclusion, which you will do within your reading this week. Thank you.